Hey John, so how are things going down at South Morton Boxing Club?
Yeah, we're very good, Peter. We're very good. Getting busier every week. We're obviously progressing with our outside classes, with our online stuff, and we're just super keen to get going and get open. When that will be is still a bit unclear. We're hoping for 4th of July, but we're waiting for the restrictions that are going to apply when we open. But I think that's then debating the 2 metre rule, 1 metre rule. So we're just sort of waiting with bated breath to see what we can do and when we can do it, really.
Fantastic. Okay, well, to cut straight to it, Floyd Mayweather Jr. or Sugar Ray Robinson, who wins?
Well, this is a really interesting one, and the sort of the hook that I want to hang this on is we're talking about two of the supreme fighters of their respective generations, without question. Now we're going to take their best night at welter. So obviously Sugar Ray was world welterweight champion and then 5 times world middleweight champion, and Mayweather had that amazing run across 5 weight divisions in the modern era. So well, we're going to compare their careers a bit and we're going to compare their styles a bit. What I really want to understand is, does the old school fighter beat the new school fighter? And the reason I want to look at that is because when you look at most sports, and you look across most sports, you can say that Carl Lewis will beat Jesse Owens. I mean, Mayweather was campaigning in the 2000s, 2010s, and obviously Sugar Ray Robinson in the 40s and 50s. If you take the Olympic sprinting champion, the high jump champion, almost any athlete from the 40s and 50s, and make them compete against their contemporary in the modern era, the contemporary in the modern era will beat them. And we all say that is because of modern nutrition, we say that's because of modern training methods and techniques, sports science coming very much into sports, and so constantly human performance improves. And I want to say, does that apply to boxing? The simple argument that sports nutrition, sports science improves an athlete's performance, therefore the modern beats the old. I'm not sure it does apply to boxing. And one of the main reasons I'll tell you why, Peter, is I think depth of competition. You know the stats for Mayweather will record 50 fights undefeated. You know the stats for Sugar Ray Robinson will record 202 fights with, I believe, 19 losses. Most of those losses come at the end of his career, by the way. Yeah. But look at how they campaigned. Mayweather was fighting every year, every 6 months when he was champion. Sugar Ray was fighting, every few weeks. I mean, and he would be fighting every guy that was out there. If you look at the record of Hall of Famers on his, incredible guys that he fought on Sugar Ray's record, he couldn't be accused of ducking anyone, because you couldn't duck anyone in those days because you had to fight for the title, not a title. You weren't defending a franchise. So you couldn't pick and choose your route. The massive commercial acumen that is now in boxing means that people defend these titles over and over again, often without fighting maybe the most dangerous people out there. So I think that depth of, the depth of talent that was out there in Sugar Ray's era, with the sheer number of people that were boxing and boxing very often, and he had to battle his way through this. And I think that leads to improved performance and improved skill. And I think, being tested almost in the fire like that, like Sugar Ray was, which, Mayweather maybe really wasn't. I think that leads to an improvement in performance. When you get things like, and when I'm talking about the franchise operation, and maybe if we look at Ben Eubank in the 90s, 2 superb fighters, and obviously I'm a huge fan of both men, particularly Ben, but they cottoned onto this idea, or Barry Hearn did, that they could defend a title and call it a world title. But if you look at Ben and Eubank, they did that and they defended against many people. They didn't go near Michael Nunn, they didn't go near James Toney, they didn't go near Roy James Jr. And I think that would limit your how far you could push your talent.
But just to talk for a second though. So obviously you're coming out in favour of Sugar Ray Robinson. That's how it sounds. But what would you say to someone who was in favour of Floyd Mayweather, who'd say, look, 50 fights as a professional fighter, undefeated. How can you do better than that?
I think you've got to look. First of all, if we're going to discount by saying the skill and depth of talent pool in competition is going to be superior in the 40s and 50s than it was in the 2010s and later on, I would say that Mayweather did pick and choose his opponents, which was his prerogative. He didn't necessarily fight everybody out there at the drop of a hat. He didn't take on a peak Pacquiao, for example. He waited a while with that. Also you've got to say, look at who, and his amazing run through the weights was incredible across 5 weight divisions, but there were less weight divisions when Sugar Ray was fighting. And he would often fight guys like Jake LaMotta. I mean, Jake LaMotta was a bull. He was so strong and, an incredibly tough man. Sugar Ray gave away 13 pounds the first time he fought Jake LaMotta. When he lost to Jake LaMotta, that wouldn't be unheard of here. So that's the level of competition that they've got to put up with. And I think he fought Jake again 6 weeks later, which would be unheard of with Mayweather. I mean, Mayweather did fight Medina again. Medina gave him a tough fight, but it was 6 months later. So, and I think if you look at their respective skills, if we come to that, I mean, Mayweather defensively, I think, was better than Robinson. Because defensively he was an incredible fighter, a joy to watch, a magician in the ring with that defence. But if you look at everything else, Sugar Ray could do it all. He could go forward, he could go backwards, he had an amazing jab, he could box on the outside, he could box on the inside, he could take you out with either hand. So I think that Sugar Ray wins this fight on sheer versatility. Whether he would stop Mayweather, I think that's kind of unlikely because, like I say, the guy's a defensive genius. I think I'm going to go for Sugar Ray Robinson on points in this one.
Okay, but how about this? So, as I understand it, Mayweather has sold 24 million pay-per-view buys, right? He has made, I think, $1.67 billion in revenue, US dollars. So he has been undefeated. He's generated more money than any other fighter in the history of boxing, I think. So that has to be again. I mean, how could he have done more? Now, you're saying, I guess, that Sugar Ray Robinson head-to-head would have fought him. I suspect maybe that they never would have met, because I think if they were around at the same time, maybe Mayweather wouldn't have taken it. I don't know.
Possibly, but the clamour would presumably have been unbelievable for them to take it. But Mayweather, being the master, tactician, strategist, business person that he was, would have taken it probably at the time that was most advantageous to him. But then you've also got to look at it. What if Mayweather was on the way up? What if Sugar Ray was the champion and he had to get past Sugar Ray to get to the position that he wanted to be in? And I think when you mention all those numbers of Mayweather, and it's odd that we are sort of you can compare numbers in sports, and that gives you a sort of definitive answer to, like we said, the 100 metres champion. Mayweather is unassailably at the top of the pile with those numbers, but they were very cleverly compiled. And I think it's that business angle that has diluted the competition in boxing, which is why I'm picking against Mayweather. Because, for example, if we take that 100 metres example again, we can compare the times of the Olympic champion in, say, 2012 to in, say, 1948. And we can then decide who's going to be the better person. But imagine if you then took that Olympic championship and said, well, we're going to have 4 Olympics. We're going to have Olympics every year, or we're going to have 4 Olympics at the same time, and everybody can choose which Olympic race they're going to run in. Then you're going to dilute the competition. So the guys that are winning these respective races are not going to be as good as the one guy who wins the one final race. So I think that counts for Mayweather in terms of business acumen and success. And I think it's that business strategy model that has diluted the competition pool that Sugar Ray had to fight his way through.
Okay, fantastic. Well, look, so obviously, John, you're going for Sugar Ray Robinson. Anybody who disagrees, just vote Mayweather, and we'll see what the results come out at. So, John, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure, Peter. Look forward to speaking to you soon.